The beauty about the continent is that it has the best human resources as well as natural resources. Africa is not in need of anything to project it and also to propel it to greatness. But the problem is, why is it so difficult for the continent to harness its natural potentials? Those are some of the things we'll be looking at today on VSA. Welcome, I'm Sulaiman. Contrary to what the advanced world felt, Africa has done well to limit the spread of COVID-19, and recovery is in the pipelines. But the pandemic came with hard lessons of the need for preparation and critical presence of infrastructure across board. It posed tasking questions about African systems and human as well as capital development. Across the continent, there is a great infrastructural gap, with hospitals, roads, schools, and many more inadequate in most sub-Saharan African nations. Africa has a development financing gap of more than $100 billion, with estimated infrastructural need pegged at $150 billion. Now, in the last 20 years, the continent, through private investment, has expanded core infrastructure such as telecommunications networks. Access to potable water has also improved across the continent, with rural dwellers facing less incidence of diseases. Despite these improvements, development is still a difficult mission on the continent. Africa is still the only region in the world with declining road density. There's also little to no improvement in electricity generating capacity, as economically buoyant and resource-rich nations like Nigeria struggle to generate power. Corruption, the lack of political will, and absence of desire are foremost African problems. In these infrastructural gaps lie business opportunities for African investors and to improve foreign direct investment. The potential to solve these infrastructural challenges is there, but without a good environment for the achievement of these targets, there's a difficulty in actualizing them. Climate, human-induced problems are also chief amongst the continent's challenges. Problems of leadership, stagnation of ideas, and lifetime presidents rank high amongst Africa's challenges, with development still very low on the continent. These are some of the points raised by my guest yesterday on The Square. Today, joining me is engineer Olukayode Oluwole. He's a cyber information analyst, and of course, you can call him CI, Cyber Information Analyst, and is the Chief Executive Officer of Cyber Hygiene. And of course, Professor Samson Akinola, Professor of Urban and Regional Planning, Osun State University, Osogbo in southwest Nigeria. Gentlemen, good to have both of you here on Village Square Africa.
Good evening, good afternoon.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. We know you're based in the United States of America, so the time difference, thank you for your time. But again, the good thing here is that many people like yourself, Walter, and of course, Professor, the thing here is that a lot of people on the continent are asking, why is it that we still haven't been able to take the continent further, knowing full well that Africa imports, 2/3 of our basic foods because there is no infrastructure for processing. Most of these come back as, finished products, which ultimately places, or place the continent on a low. Let's start from you, Walter. When you look at the imports coming from or leaving the continent to other parts of the world, one would have thought that the continent should have been able to, by now, make better use of some of these raw materials, raw commodity. What do you think the continent is lacking that we haven't actually been able to, put our finger on?
Well, thank you very much for asking that simple question that is very loaded in terms of responsibility and accountability. Now, I grew up in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, and I do often go back home. And I live in the United States. I'm a cybersecurity information analyst here. So I own my businesses out here. I have more than one business. So now let's talk about Nigeria. I don't want to, I'm not an economist, but I want to give you a reality check. Let's look at one thing that we all talk about, cocoa beans, for example. It's a very good example. Now, when it leaves Africa, it's about $1,800 per ton, cocoa beans. When it gets to the shores of the West, it's the same amount of money. Now, you take the same cocoa beans and grind it for about 24 hours with a stone mortar and grind it into very fine paste. Now, that becomes what? Cocoa, 100% cocoa. And how much is that per ton now? About $60,000 per ton. Why is it that Africa is not taking a piece of this action? Africa will never take a piece of this action until we have leadership that recognize the fact that we have to be responsible for our own actions. The president of Ghana went down to Switzerland and told them without any shame that my country will not export cocoa to you any longer. We are going to process it, make the money ourselves, and ship it to you if you want. And if we have to consume it ourselves, we're going to consume it ourselves. Now, when we ship cocoa beans at $1,800 per ton to Europe, it comes back to us as what? Chocolate. It left as a commodity product. We don't have control of how much it costs to sell it. When it comes back to us, we don't have control of how much we're going to pay for it. So the same people that tells us how much it's going to cost us, how much they're going to pay for our cocoa beans, are going to tell us with a different paradigm and call it free market and tell us how much we're going to pay for the chocolate. On top of that, we have different kind of marketing schemes. They call it Valentine's Day. So now you're forced to buy chocolate from where? Abroad. You can see that we have to change the narrative. If I were the president of Nigeria today, the first thing is to get out the commodity market. And president of Ghana is taking the lead on that.
Let me bring in Professor Akinola here. You've heard Walter. He's actually started on a very, deep, positive note, something that African leaders must reflect on. And he's looking at the abundance of natural resources and, of course, looking at our agricultural produce here, which seem to have been ignored by, successive leaders across the continent. And he's just pointed out the Ghanaian president who said, look, time for us to stop all of this is now for Ghana. What do you think is missing that has actually placed us, where we are on the continent? It doesn't look like we have Professor Akinola. So anyway, I go back to Walter. That's what we hope my producers should be able to get that connection back to Professor Akinola. You've raised quite a very important, aspect, placing it, it looks so simple, but I think it went home. That resonates with a lot of Africans. What you've just highlighted is basic arithmetic, but is filled, with a lot of logic, a lot of reasoning, and, that is just one commodity you touched on. And if you look at it, we have quite a number of them on the continent. Nigeria, for instance, apart from the cocoa, you also have timber. Honestly, a lot of them. And okay. If you stretch it, what Nigeria is also going through now because of the moribund refineries, they also now move crude out of the continent. And the thing now, you said something about leadership. What are those key things missing in choosing leaders on the continent? Because if you have someone showing an example, as we've seen in President Nana Akufo-Addo, then there must be something that ignited his emergence that perhaps is missing in other African countries.
You see, the reality of it is very simple. One tree doesn't make a forest. And our leaders in Nigeria, they've done the best they can do so far. If you're a leader, you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in those silos of domains that they're supposed to represent. That is about bringing money into Nigeria, getting foreign dollars or pound sterling or euro, bringing it back to Nigeria with the cocoa beans. Let's talk about what we have in Nigeria by itself, what we do to our own selves in Nigeria. Nigerian clothing industry, for example. In the South, we call it Ashoke. Now, we're buying Ashoke from China, made out of polyester, all right? Now, what we've done essentially is we've killed the person or the person that goes out and farm and grow cotton. Now, that cotton producer cannot sell it to people that goes in and spin the cotton into spools. Now, that again has spoiled the market for someone that's going to take it and weave those cotton spools and weave it into strips of ashoke. Now, there's no more market for someone to take that and now sew up and make, ashoke. And now there's no other, the market for selling that thing is gone. Now you can see how we've shot ourselves in the foot because we decided to import things from China instead of making what we, taking the benefit of what we have in Nigeria and making the best of it. The interesting thing about it is, if you buy Dudu Osun in Lagos and ship it to Cuba, the religious community in Cuba will pay $50 for Dudu Osun, the black soap. We don't take advantage of that because the infrastructure we have in Nigeria right now does not support that. Few months ago, cocoa beans were on the waters of Nigeria. They couldn't leave because the Central Bank of Nigeria said they have to prove to them that the money must come back to Nigeria. Now, the commodity is going to rot. How are they going to sell it at 5% humidity level to the people that want to buy the cocoa beans? Granted the fact that 73% of cocoa production in the world is what? West Africa. Everybody knows about Hershey chocolate. Hershey started what? Importing cocoa beans from Nigeria to grow, to do what? To help keep orphanage growing. He made so much money, they started investing in real estate. So if you're part of the orphanage of Hershey in Pennsylvania, you don't have to pay for your elementary school, your boarding, your school fees, all the way down to college level, any level you want to go to. That legacy is there. It was built on our own cocoa beans. You have Iceland with 300,000 people in there, less than the number of people in Ikeja or Surulere. This is a country that depends on West African cocoa to survive, and they're thriving. 300,000 people, and everybody must have heard of Iceland chocolate. It's one of the most expensive in the world. Nobody knows about Nigerian chocolate. Yes, there are, but we don't patronize our own. We don't love our own. We don't think our own is good. So you can see that is the problem we have. We've talked about, cocoa being exported out. We've talked about our own traditional clothing being made in Nigeria. We killed it ourselves because we decided to import it from China. We decided to kill our own jewelry, like beads. They call it inyo, or akumbutubutu, or segi. We killed those because we decided to import them from Brazil and China. So the artisans that make those things, they don't have jobs anymore. We've lost that ability to make that. And the interesting thing about it is that the first set of people that ever made glass beads in the world before Asians or the Europeans were people from Ile-Ife. It's documented. Harvard University has this information. We were the one that created the first set of beads in the world.
Listening to you, Walter, I have this pain, this nostalgic feeling because You just highlighted some of the key things I actually saw growing up, here in Nigeria. There's a street called Igun Street in Edo State, southern Nigeria, where you have some of the best of bronze casting, iron casting, to the extent that when people visit, I think it was like a tourist attraction. A lot of people come in, but today is a ghost, a shadow of itself. And now you just also raised the issue of the ashoke and a couple of other clothing, which is what we see in the southwest of Nigeria. But again, with such a wide infrastructural gap to be filled at our finest performance, how soon can we play catch-up? Now, how soon can the continent play catch-up here?
It's about responsibility and about leadership. I divided the responsibilities into 4 different categories. The government, individuals, diaspora, and religion. When you look at government needs to help with infrastructure. Let's take, for example, right now, let's use a very good example that, look, you don't have to be an economist to understand what's going on. People are now eating gari and peanuts at parties in Nigeria, which I find very fascinating. All right. Now, people are now eating what do you call it? Ofada rice, which was supposed to be for the low class people in Lagos and everywhere in Nigeria. Now, if you're eating locally grown, guess what? You can export it out, because now in the US, people are now buying Ofada rice at parties. Granted the fact that my wife doesn't like it. I love Ofada rice, right? My wife calls it smelly rice. She's an American, but that's what she calls it. But it's my rice, and I love it. So when I go to Nigerian parties here in the US, I look for Ofada rice. It helps the economy to bring money back. Diaspora brings money back. Nigeria can bring money back.
It is huge, and if you see, because I like the fact that we're breaking it down to the extent that anyone and everyone must understand the import of what we're highlighting today on the continent. Forget about all the big names and acronyms economists will bring on the table. The thing here is that we are in dire straits, Walter, as highlighted by you, and it resonates with a lot of people across the continent. This is not about Nigeria, it's about the continent, because from each country on the continent, there's something similar to what you just highlighted. But the thing here still rests first with leadership and policies that will help drive some of them. Isn't it amazing that sometimes the effort by governments across the continent, Nigeria inclusive, to put in place policies that would drive same sector, somehow there is a counter policy that slows another policy down? How is it that we still do not have, for instance, there's a 2063 development agenda which has been set by the African Union? I don't think, listening to you, we need to wait till 2063 to activate some of the things you highlighted. So how soon can the continent begin to look inwards to some of those key things you've just raised?
Well, that's very interesting. Well, the first thing I will say is we deserve the leaders we vote for. End of story. We really do deserve the people we vote for. All right. We have a leader that was that was sent to jail for 13 years. He spent less than 13 years in jail, came back to Nigeria. He was welcomed as a hero. Let's settle that for a minute. I'm going to go back and give one more example. If one of our leaders, say the wife of one of our leaders, decide to stop wearing fake hair made in China, we have women that will have their own shops and weave and use shea butter or cocoa butter. Those are industries we can develop. Those industries, we had them when I was growing up. Those industries are dying or dead. For me to use shea butter here in the US, I have to get it from Ghana, not Nigeria. Why? Because I can't get it from Nigeria if I want to buy it here. Very simple things we need to do. It's leadership. If the wife of somebody out there that's an excellency, honorable says, hey, I'm going to showcase my new weave of hairdo. Guess what? They're going to show something made in China or made in Brazil. And that brings us to religion. When we whitewash our way of life, we want to look like a Westerner. We're not white people. We're not Asians. And we're never going to be like that. We cannot put a square peg in a round hole. We are Africans. We are beautiful people. Let's go back to our roots and do what we've been doing before. It brings us some degree of sanity. We need to stop bleaching. That money goes where? It goes abroad. Fake hair, it goes abroad. Fake beads, it goes abroad. Fake nails, it goes abroad. Fake, eye makeup, everything goes abroad. We can't talk about, we don't have to be an economist. You don't have to be, you don't have to be brilliant to know these are things that we're doing to ourselves. And it takes one person, 2, 3 in leadership to say, this is how I want it. I'm going to go out, I'm going to wear a Nigerian traditional dress made in Nigeria by Nigerians, period. Not something that is made with plastic from China. It starts with one person to say, I'm going to wear Nigerian authentic beads. You know, there are so many Nigerian youths right now that don't know what a real inyo, akumbutubutu, segi, they don't know what it looks like. They don't know that it's called jasper stone. They don't know, inyo is actually a coral bead. They call everything inyo, but they are not. That is a problem. We want to speak English. We use English language as a measure of intelligence. Look at us. Who's smart now? I mean, we have everything under the sun. Now you talk about, what leaders can do for us. If I have to import solar panels to Nigeria, look at how much I'm going to pay for that. When I imported my solar panels into Nigeria, about 36 panels, I had to make sure I got a police escort to escort my solar panel.
Oh, I hope I didn't just lose. Well, I think I lost that connection to. Okay, Walter, are you back?
I'm back.
Oh, great. So okay. You were on course telling us how you moved your solar panels to another location when it arrived in Nigeria.
So for me when I export my solar panel to Nigeria, I had to get a police escort to get it to my property. The importation tax, the tax duty it doesn't make any sense for a country that has electric problems, power problems. It doesn't make sense. So if the country is ready to support, diaspora will bring money in. Diaspora will bring things in. I'm a member of communitywide.org right now. For us to bring medication and all kinds of different support systems we need in Nigeria, we pay a lot of money for doing that. That is our own money from our own pocket to help Nigerians. In 2019, there was 8,000 people we had an outreach to. And out of those 8,000, 2,000 had free eye surgery. Some of them were able to see first time in a long time. That is what we can do to ourselves. But when the country doesn't have an infrastructure to support that, it's a problem. And if they do, you have to know somebody that knows the governor. That is not the way of life.
Because Africa has a boundless and limitless amount of resources, and you just highlighted that much. And Nigeria, for instance, can't forget the groundnut pyramid, and of course the cocoa boom in the west of the country, and the groundnut pyramid in the north of the country, to the extent that they were what powered the economy at that time. And Walter, the good thing is that you have just reminded the continent that there is need for it to go back to these, resources that are never-ending. They're still very much there, to the extent that these resources are resources fueling economies in other parts of the world. Now, let's talk more about the things we do that, are inimical to the growth of our economy. One of the things you highlighted is leadership, and you say the other one is ourselves. Perhaps you need to highlight more, expatiate more on that. You've said that much about leadership. what can individuals do in the face of, leadership going south?
So the leadership is a selfless participation in government of the people, for the people, by the people. Now you're a leader. What is your mandate? We decide to vote for somebody. We have no clue what that person's intent is. We don't understand what the conduct of that person is going to be. The only thing we know is that that person is, don't you know who I am syndrome. I call it a self-imposed madness. It's a mental health issue. When we vote for somebody that tells you, don't you know who I am? I don't know you from Adam. And you're telling me, you're asking me, don't you know who I am? Because you're a chief or you've been called an excellency. What can you do for your own people? What is the plan? What is the 10-point mandate that you want to put out there? You don't have a plan, no problem. Get the people that are smarter than you in different silos of whatever you want to do for them. You don't need to know everything. There's enough for everybody in that country. You don't have to come in every 4 years and give people 2,000 naira and go and come back in the next 4 years and give them another 2,000 naira for what they call stomach infrastructure. There's enough to go around. Look at Dubai. That place was a desert. It's a very young country. Nigeria has been around a lot longer than just about any country in the world. So it boils down to one thing, leadership. And it boils down to another thing that we have to recognize and take responsibility for. We deserve the leaders we vote for. And when they don't do what they're supposed to do, we should be able to vote them out. We should be able to call them out. And if we try to call them out right now, you know what they say? They call it hate speech. NSARS was trying to call them out. They killed the youths. And this brings me up to religion. Where are the religious leaders when our children were being killed during NSARS? These kids need jobs. As of yesterday, according to Bloomberg, 33% of Nigerians are jobless. Okay? I can attest to a project that I did a few years back, about 4 years ago. We had 1.17 million Nigerians apply from every single country in the world for 2,500 job openings by the federal government of Nigeria. Over 1 million people apply for jobs in less than 8 weeks for free. They did apply. Fast forward, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. Today, according to Bloomberg, 33% of Nigerians are out of jobs.
And it is rising.
Growing cotton, weaving cotton, making local clothing and selling local clothing, making what they call it, batik, selling batik. Those are all trades that are gone. Look at people that carve. All the carvings are gone. When you go down to a hotel, you don't see those anymore. All right. When you go down to Kano, when you go to Kofa Wambe, you see them all over the place. You don't see them anymore. You go down to Jos, you go to Nasarawa, they used to be there. You don't see them anymore. Right. So guess what? The women, you can't weave their hair like they used to when my mother and my older siblings were growing up. Guess what? We're now buying foreign wigs.
Sorry to cut you there, because I think we need this reawakening, and that is why on the square, on Village Square Africa here, we allow, Africans bear it all. We allow you say it so that the leadership, so that the people can pick lessons from this. Another aspect, when we come back, I want us to talk on after the break, is to talk about the technology advancement on the continent by Africans in Africa and Africans in diaspora, and see what the continent is not, gaining from this vast knowledge. That's when we return. Well, Africa has an ever-increasing need for infrastructure. With a population of 1.3 billion people, it has an abysmally low level of infrastructural development. The continent has always called on the globe to help drive its local ambitions, and complacency can be felt across the length and breadth of the continent. Unwilling governments waiting to be fed while they reap their local resources still abound. Telecommunication and revitalization of the continent is growing impressively. Most of the basic amenities and development indices are still absent. So the African governments are advised to incentivize production on the continent by reducing the cost of capital. Willing local investors are not encouraged enough, as competition for places is narrowed by the friends of governments. Technological advancement should also be adopted in fixing the infrastructural gap of the continent, while credit enhancements should be provided for the reduction of financial risk. But in all of this, as highlighted by Walter Oluwole, he says, well, the continent lacks leadership direction as well as, policy to enable the continent pool its resources, especially natural resources, together and forge ahead for a better economy that will see the world moving towards the continent, Africa. The good thing is that the conversation has started here on the square, and we will not be done until such a time when that drive is being taken up, as we have seen with Ghana, talking, tough in Switzerland. Well, it's our home run, yes, here on the square. Still have Walter Oluwole. He's, a cyber information analyst and an engineer, of course, the CEO of Cyber Hygiene. And any moment from now, we should have Samson Akinola, a professor of urban and regional planning, joining us. Walter, thank you for your time. Good to know you're still there for us. We're looking at, technology, which is one key area that you specialize on, and we've seen how much of improvement individuals on the continent and outside the continent have made. How is it that till this moment we haven't pretty much seen some African countries latch on to such efforts by some experts and make some of those, creations, some of those inventions a national policy to the extent that when you see, for instance, you say flutter wave, you can actually say this is an indigenous invention from country A or B. So what's wrong?
What is wrong? Thank you for bringing that up. Technology is my space, and I love it. I'll give you my thought process, the way I think. In the news in the past few weeks, there was a young man that was arrested for robbing banks through the ability to use SIM cards, and he actually created his own tool. Now, when I saw that kid talking to the media effortlessly, he was very candid and very straight up about what he was talking about. It was very fascinating to me. Here in the US, that kid will be considered to be a bug bounty hunter. He can make up to about $100,000 a year doing that. That kid should not be in jail. Why? He's going to train other people in jail the tool set that he's using to rob the banks. What the guy has found is a gap analysis that banking system in Nigeria is flawed. Take him, employ him by security services, teach the security services, and get the bank to sit down and say, this is how you need to fix your bug. Gap analysis. Now you're going to take that intelligent kid that doesn't have an opportunity to do anything in Nigeria and lock him up so he can train the other people in jail, and they will come out, maybe 10 people, maybe 50 or 60, and they're going to be better than him and keep robbing the banks. That is why we need to have a paradigm shift in the way we think. Every European country, every developed country does it. We in Nigeria, I'll say Nigeria we do everything backwards. Every developed country educate their children in their indigenous language. We use a foreign language to educate our own children. How can they comprehend? They can understand, but they may not be able to comprehend. Now, do you know that there's a young lady in Nigeria that's one of the top 50 AI developers in the world? A female, she's about 27 years old. When they look at all the female AI developers in the world, there's a Nigerian among them. You will never know that. And here you have universities in Nigeria talking about they're trying to synthesize people to understand what AI ML is, artificial intelligence, machine languages. And you have in Nigeria one of the top 50s in Nigeria in the whole world.
And a female.
We need to change that narrative. We need to think differently. We need to go back and think like Nigerians, Africans. We're never going to be Europeans. We need to stop wearing their wigs and putting their makeup on. We need to be who we are, to be true to ourselves. There's so many things we have in Nigeria. You don't have to be a genius of economics to understand what needs to be done. It's all around us. Everything we need. Look, what I do at Cyber Hygiene is very simple. My company goes out into the dark web, look for information about anybody out there and bring it out of the dark web. I can tell you what your password is if it's in the dark web. I can tell you what data was stolen and kept in the dark web for you. And it takes them less than 5 minutes. We're trying to teach and educate Nigerians right now as we speak. But to do that in Nigeria, you have to pay so much money to get the things that you need. And we want to teach them for free. So we developed a program, hopefully by the end of August, that program will be available for Nigerian students that want to be able to learn over 6 months and get a job outside Nigeria and not have to worry about the government. So I was in Nigeria in November, right? I put together a team of young Nigerians. One is an electronic engineer doing something else that has nothing to do with electronics. I said, why don't you go back to what you went to school for and give me A, B, C, D? Before I got on the program, he actually sent me a sample of the PCB board, which means a board that was made so that he can put all the electronic stuff in from China today. That means we can get about 60 to 80% of the raw materials that we need from, Computer Village and recycle computers and use it to build solar lanterns. That is our goal. We can do this. We have the brains in Nigeria, but we have to change our thinking.
This actually means the 33% of unemployed people on in Nigeria alone can be reversed if the government starts, thinking in this direction. Hold on a minute. I understand that Professor Akinola is on the phone. If you can hear me, Professor, good to have you join us again. Apologies, you couldn't join us via Zoom.
Thank you for having me.
No, we should thank you very much for your patience. Walter and I, we've been having a conversation on how best the continent can move out of this tag of being labeled developing world to an advanced world. He thinks that we can actually leapfrog the continent if so many things are done: leadership, policies, and of course the people having their own style and type of education, kind of reason, and a whole lot we've been talking about. Now, bringing you on now, there are some schools of reasoning that have come up to argue that African infrastructural development is beneficial only to individuals, but not to the country where that individual or to the continent. As a professor of urban and regional, planning, tell us, your own, thinking on that argument about African infrastructural development.
Well, thank you for having me. The problem of infrastructure development in Africa is very complex because the colonial masters, when they were in Africa, develop infrastructure to exploit resources to their country. They did not let us know that a nation that want to develop to build infrastructure requires the joint effort of government, private sector, and the people. The independent African leaders, when they came on board, they assumed the role of Almighty that can provide everything free. If you our government is what happened in Nigeria in the 70s, and even in some communities today. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead, Professor Akinola. I can hear you.
Yeah. We discover
we can hear him. We can hear him.
At strategic places for people to fetch water free. But if you look at that water, it involves a lot. The water corporation, they demand a lot of investment for capital and for operating costs. But they believe they should be given free. So the mentality of free services was in the mind of most Africans. But you see, as time goes on, the public officials started stealing public resources that belong to the people. Eventually, there was no enough resources to maintain some of these infrastructure. And in fact, we are now asking people to pay. It's a serious problem. If you look at what we are passing through with the electricity operation now in Nigeria, you know, before we have NITEC, people pass through a lot of problems. But we have MTN, Glo, and services that are being produced, and people are enjoying it, but they pay for it. So, control the mentality of the people and that of government requires three groups having a community assembly whereby they'll be able to know that to get this is what we are going to pay. To get this is what we are going to pay. And the people in that assembly themselves, they'll be able to point out that it is not only civil construction, but what is the amount of money spent on roads? Compare what is on ground.
Let me come in here, Professor Akinola. Sorry, let me come in here so that Walter can weigh in on this. Walter, the conversation listening to Professor Akinola, and he also made mention of the colonialists, the colonial masters. Looking at pretty, much of the African countries, is it valid for us to still think that the colonialists or the colonial masters did the continent bad, knowing full well that they've left for a long time, to the extent that given the resources and the human capital that we have on the continent should have been able to, be at par with what we see in other parts of the world.
Thank you for bringing up the colonialism. When I started talking about 30 minutes ago, I talked about four sections of responsibility: government, individuals, diaspora, and religion. The people that came in to colonize us came up with the 3 C's. Come up with colony. They came up with commercializing what we have, and they came into, just control. So we need to wake up and grow up and stop crying a river about the fact that somebody colonized us and enslaved us, and we continue to use the same tools that was used to colonize us, whether it's, the Christianity, whether it's Islam. That we have used it to continue to suppress ourselves. You cannot talk or challenge anything that is out of line when it comes to the tools that was used to colonize us. We are responsible for our own deeds right now. We chose the leaders that are, managing the country. They have done their best. Their best is not good for us. We need to let them know what's going on. This is not good for us. But when we talk, it is hate speech. Okay? So what do we need to do? We need to reevaluate the way we do things. We need to wake up the young intellectuals and stop depending on paper qualification and start realizing that, look, America and Europe were built by blue-collar workers. Everybody knows about a 40-footer container or 20-footer container. The person that designed that did not go to any college. He went to high school and that's it. The world knows how to use an 20-footer or 40-footer container. The reality is we need to get people that know what they're talking about, not because they read it in the book, not because they got a degree in it. You must have the ability to manage and management acumen, not because you have PhD in management, okay? You have to know, look at how many engineers we have in Nigeria. We cannot manage our own roads. We cannot come up with a road that we can localize and say, this road is made for Nigeria. Yet we have all the engineers in the world. Our engineers cannot mass produce our own indigenous clothing. We have to send it down to China to make plastic ones and bring it back. Our engineers cannot go in and make our jasper beads and make it locally so we can sell it to the world when the world needs it. A jasper, a stone from Africa goes for over $100, about the size of my thumb. What is wrong with us?
That's why we're here, Walter. That's why we're having this conversation.
So when I go to Nigeria, I call myself an engineer. When I'm back in America, nobody gives a rat's ass about who or what my title is. Can you give us a cybersecurity risk assessment? Yes. And this is the report after doing an assessment. In Nigeria, do you know how long it's going to take you for you to do a cybersecurity assessment? Let me put it to you this way. I was in one of the top, when I said one of the top highly secured facilities in Nigeria. Less than 10 minutes, I was looking at how many different government agencies from other countries that have access to our own network. Our own network is managed by foreign entities. And you want to tell me that security? When the DNS of Nigerian government was broken, it was fixed right here over the telephone. I did fix it.
Walter.
The reason why I'm so passionate and pissed off is that we have the resources, but for you to get there, to use the resources, you have to get 100 years of time. You have to.
Sir, I don't mean to cut you there, but it is your passion which you have always shown. I recall some years ago sitting with you right there, listening to you. That, was it for me. And this conversation is not over. We will stretch it. No, certainly we'll stretch it. Too bad Professor Akinola had problems connecting. We'll also bring him back on the show. And Walter, honestly, you have to come back. The problems are getting unraveled and solutions are being discussed. Without a doubt, the continent's solution is highly dependent on the quality of his leadership, as highlighted by you, Walter. And of course, we'll be here on Village Square Africa again to discuss more on African development. I'm excited to have both of you here. There is a need for a turnaround, no doubt, for the sake of the future. So many thanks for being such nice company, Walter and Akinola. Tomorrow is another time. I'll be here again, and we'll have this conversation running. See you then.